at a time when the dinosaurs roamed a lush and fertile planet. A piece of rock just 6 miles wide changed all that. It hit with the force of 10,000 nuclear weapons. 1 trillion tons of dirt and rock hurtled into the atmosphere, creating a suffocating blanket of dust the sun was powerless to penetrate for 1,000 years. It happened before. It will happen again. It's just a question of when.
All right, folks, welcome back. So we're continuing on with the Mars mystery. Disclaimer, as always, under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. And once again, we're going into the murdered planet, and specifically the Janus planet. Killer projectiles. So Hancock writes, the Hellas fragments passed into the internal magma of Mars, creating enormous pressure waves. This impact caused internal distress, quote, resulting in a huge pair of bulges in the opposite hemisphere. There were at least 2 other fragments that penetrated the Martian crust, Isidis and Argyre. In the vicinity opposite the Isidis is the Elysium Bulge. The death of worlds. Among the tens of thousands of smaller craters on Mars, there are more than 3,000 with a diameter more than 30 kilometers and dozens with diameters up to 250 kilometers. Hancock describes Hellas, Isidis, and Argyre as, quote, the dark, lurking monsters of Martian topography. He suggests that the true diameters of the Martian impactors were actually far smaller than the scientists originally hypothesized. The famous Barringer crater in Arizona is 180 meters deep and just over a kilometer wide, created by an iron meteorite about 50 meters wide. The Tunguska event was created by a fragment of a comet/asteroid 70 meters across, traveling at 100,000 kilometers an hour. The asteroid flattened 6,000 square kilometers of forest. Seismic shocks were measured over 4,000 kilometers away, and the impact of dust thrown into the atmosphere blocked out the sun for several years. It hit an unpopulated area, thank God, in the middle of Siberia. Hancock compares it to the Yucatan incident at the Gulf of Mexico, which struck with more force than all the nuclear weapons on Earth combined, creating a crater 180 kilometers in diameter and sent up enough dust to block the sun out for 5 years. It also created a lot of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions for many years afterwards. 75% of all life on Earth was destroyed almost overnight. The rock was the size of Mount Everest and was powerful enough to shift the Earth's orbit by a few dozen meters. Hancock warns that comets/asteroids the size of 10 kilometers or larger often come dangerously close to Earth, and that if such an object hit us, it would be the end of all life on this planet forever. NASA's photographs tell the whole story of what killed Mars. Hancock describes Mars as a, quote, ruined corpse. What these photographs suggest is that the victim was first hit from the south at point-blank range with the cosmic equivalent of a blast of a 12-bore shotgun, hence the thousands of craters clustered to the south. The killer then finished off the job with 3 single shots from a large caliber rifle. Good way of putting it. Speaking of ruined corpses, check out the bottom right. That's what instantly sprung to mind when he said a ruined corpse, you know. Darth Vader. Energy waves. Hancock states that geologists don't consider it an accident that on the opposite side of the world, when the Yucatan object struck the Gulf of Mexico, a huge volcano erupted in India. This led to extensive molten magma activity, which created the Deccan Traps. Hancock states that the same thing would have happened on Mars, only 100 times worse. The Tharsis bulge was a direct reaction to the Hellas impact, and the Elysium bulge was as a direct result of the Acidus hit. The shock waves would not have passed through the red planet, but would have punched right through to its very core. Hancock further states that the Hellas, Acidus, and Argyre asteroid impacts were probably accountable for the monster volcano Olympus Mons, as well as the Valles Marineris. The depth of the canyons on Mars are too extensive to have happened naturally. He wonders if something even more devastating happened on Mars as a result of the trio of massive asteroid impacts. He also speculates that these blows may have been strong enough to obliterate the crust of Mars's northern hemisphere. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Hancock writes, quote, recent research supports the notion that tremendous energy pulses transmitted during the Hellas, Acidus, and Argyre impacts could have done the job. This research has shown that even shockwaves from relatively small impacts have caused the surface of Mars to bounce flicking boulders into space. Hellas, Acidus, and Argyre were not small impacts. Their combined mass and momentum could have bounced the entire northern hemisphere vigorously enough to flick a 3-kilometer thick layer of its crust into space. So there we have it, folks. Some pretty intense stuff, you know. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below, and take care. See you next time.